Okay, so how do we go about these freedom tools? The procedure in itself is really quite simple, but there are several steps that you do need to bear in mind. Of course, you don't have to memorize any of this. There is a book which contains pretty well all of Per Schutz's thoughts on this, plus quite a few expanding concepts from me. Basically, anyone who's emotionally unsound and unstable should be doing this, and it needs to be done early on. So if you're a professional person, like a counselor, a clinical psychologist, or even a person with a pastoral role, you need to be aware of this quite early on. Otherwise, you end up with a person who you've been able to help and they feel good, maybe they've broken their addiction, say, but they disappear for a while and 6 months later they're back again and they're back in trouble. It's all come back to them because they haven't really dealt with the reasons why they are making themselves smaller. Remember, a person pips his or herself. So you have to do it early on, otherwise you get what's virtually like a borderline personality response. Now, borderlines are characterized by being emotionally unstable. They're a bit wild. They're up and they're down, and they're up and down, and they're sideways, and they're your friend, and then they suddenly don't want to talk to you. This is the borderline personality type, and it's an absolute classic sign or signal of the phenomenon that I'm talking about here with pips and pipping. Okay, so the key point of the process, or the key point of the problem and the difficulty, I should say, is the person making themselves smaller. They were in contact with somebody who was hostile, aggressive, maybe belittling, angry, maybe not very intelligent kind of social contact. There can be, as I said, things like religious oppression and political oppressions and so on, but basically the person has been in contact with somebody or something that led to him or her making the decision to make themselves smaller. I must be no good. I'm useless at this. I think I'm a failure. I can't cope with all this anxiety and this stress. I'm not worthy. I'm not going to get the things I want because I'm not a worthy person. All these kind of moments in a person's life. Well, we start with a pen and paper. Well, the person has the pen and paper. You as the practitioner or the accompanist or therapist doesn't have to do it. In fact, you can do this over the internet using Skype or something like that. So the person at the end, they write down their answers, but you want them to write down each and every occasion they can think of. It's no good saying grandfather was a bully. That doesn't work because there are no specific events there. So grandfather was a bully. He refused to allow me to go on holiday in Italy with my friends. Grandfather is a bully because he broke up my relationship with Peter just because he was not of the right religious persuasion. And so what you do is get the person to list these moments at which they chose to belittle themselves. We've got to then unpick it and find a person. So if you find some very significant persons, such as I was giving you an example there, right, like grandfather, Jonas' grandfather, maybe he was a bit of a bully and a bit of a family thug. Well, it'd be very helpful to go and pull off all the things that a person can think of that grandfather Jonas did. You know, he told me I had to read the Bible weekly whether I wanted to or not. I wasn't allowed to watch these kind of TV programs. I was made to cut my hair in a certain way. I had to wear approved or authorized clothes. Now, my parents didn't help me or defend me. He was such a bully. My mum gave in all the time, and whatever he said I should do, poor old mum, she sided with him because she was a coward too, and so I got pushed around by both of them. But ultimately, all of this stuff was coming from grandfather. So, you see, you've got to you pick it apart. You know, if you say church morals and church integrity, they're all hypocritical down, you know, wherever it is that they go to worship. They're all a bunch of liars and hypocrites. I don't like them. Yes, but you've got to pick it apart and find out the person. It may not be the pastor. It may be somebody in the congregation, the audience, as it were, that is always throwing his weight around and making his opinions strongly felt, that results in everybody else having to pull themselves inside the shell let themselves be pipped or make themselves smaller, in other words. Now, this stage can take hours, days even, it depends how much time you can give per day. But you might end up with a list of hundreds of events, really. Some will be much more significant than others, and it's not just one person, usually there'll be several. But as soon as it's clear there's one very important person among the pile, deal with that person first, okay? What you've got to do then with the person is get them to disconnect from that influence, from what was being said or what was being used against the person, what appeared in the environment to make the person want to make themselves smaller. Now, it's very important, we do not expect them to disconnect from the person that was giving them trouble. That's Scientology nonsense. You have to disconnect from the person. It breaks up families. It's horrible. And it's also very stupid because it isn't necessary. It achieves nothing. It just breaks up families, and it does not result in the person being less pipped, or the person still is making less of themselves, making themselves smaller. In fact, they might be being told by their religious counselors in cults and other movements like that, that you have to disconnect from this toxic person. The Jesus Army, I think, are another bunch like that. They won't let you talk to your parents because they know the parents are going to come on strong and say, look, we love you, we'd like you at home, you're very welcome at home. They don't want that. They want the person crushed and pipped and kept in a control mechanism, and that's often the problem with religions. Anyway, as I say, you get this whole list of events, and then the person one by one has to disconnect. So the person might say, I disconnect from Grandfather Jonas telling me what kind of haircut I must have. It's my own hair, I can choose the style I want, and I can choose a modern hairstyle if I wish, even if he thinks it's completely silly and stupid or makes me look ridiculous or wild. I do not care. I make my own choices about what kind of hairstyle to have. And then you go on to the next one. I completely disconnect from Grandfather Jonas trying to tell me what to wear. He's got no fashion sense. He doesn't understand what people of my generation like and what it means to look good in clothes that means something to my generation, which has nothing to do with him and the old folks. Do you see? So whichever person you picked, you just go through these people one by one and all the actions that was used against the person one by one. Listen, this isn't a class on how to do it. It's a class on how we do it, but you're going to need the book, or at least the written papers. I'll tell you where you can download Pear's papers and also where you can get a copy of this book. You're going to need some written material of this kind to tell you what to do, but also to fill you full of ideas. I mean, Pear he was very persuasive about where you should look. Some of you I know believe in past lives. Maybe that was where the person really got crushed and pipped and started making themselves smaller. But Pear has some very interesting and revealing questions. For example, he says, have you ever been haunted? What? But we do know that spirits can come on very strong sometimes. They have no power whatsoever except to intimidate and frighten people. But if the person responds by pipping themselves, making themselves smaller, then you're still going to get more or less the same effect, aren't you? Has somebody put a curse on you? I meet this a lot, family curses running down the generations. These have no power whatsoever except that the person will agree with them. At that point, they become effective and will work in a person's life. If you pretend to be a witch doctor or a voodoo spook and you say, you are going to die a week on Wednesday, and wave a bone at him or something, some of them will die on Wednesday because they were told, they were crushed, and they accepted this pipping and said, oh my God, I'm going to die. This witch doctor said so. So you can be very imaginative, right? That's the point I'm trying to make. Whatever list you get and however many hours or days it takes, you work through the list piece by piece with the person who's really literally ripping off layers of this control and oppression the bullying and the negativism. Now don't forget, there's a point I need to make, which sometimes it's not a bad person doing bad things. It can be a good person, a really brilliant, strong, positive person who wants to get on in life, and they have plans and they won't take no for an answer. I'm going there, with you come or not, if you want to just fall by the wayside, that's okay to, that's not deliberately malicious, wicked or evil or anything like that. It's just this person is very driving and very positive. Well, some people pip themselves in the face of that. Oh my God, what's the matter with this guy? I haven't got that kind of energy. I'm okay sat by the fire with a pipe and slippers. I don't want to go out and save the world. You get on with it. So the person is invited to pit themselves, if you like, but the person wasn't saying, you are bad, you are dumb, you are stupid. He was just saying, I am positive, I'm strong, I'm going places, and it can have the same effect. It doesn't matter, whatever these effects are, okay? Now, it's very important that the person say these things out loud. It's no good, the person has a list, right? So have them read off the list, but out loud they must say, I hereby disconnect from, I, John Thomas, hereby disconnect from my grandmother, who was a bit of a hyena, telling me this, that, and the other, okay? Voicing it out loud verbally has extremely strong psychic potential. It's transformative to actually state, and it's like, if you think of it, it's a bit like affirmations. You're saying, this is the way things are as of now. And it's a joy to watch when people do this, by the way. You see them waking up and kind of peeping out from behind the covers, and gradually and eventually they strip off all the covering layers and go, yay, I'm me, ha ha. A man I did this with very recently, sort of late middle-aged man who was a bit timid and was certainly a bit bullied and had been well pipped, suddenly said, and these were beautiful words to hear, I have regained my courage. And you could see it on his face. He was courageous and knew that whatever life was going to throw at him now, he could take it. Then from there, the next thing we do is really very exciting. Again, there are detailed instructions on this in the written materials, but basically you want the person to write up the new me. I, John Thomas, am actually wise, I'm dynamic, I'm energetic, I think I look quite good, I have strong sexual drives, women find me attractive, I seem to be very successful with money, my boss and workmates like me. Whatever that person sees for themselves, they write out a description of the me as I now am, after removing these negative self-crushing incidents and beliefs and experiences, stripping it all away, then there's a new person. So make sure that they clearly identify this new person, write out a full, satisfying description, and you should see their face radiant and grinning from ear to ear when they do this, because they really are and see themselves as some new person, and it's very exciting for them. And then what you want to do is have the person, they could type it up and stick it on the fridge door, or just handwritten sheets will do. In this day and age of technology, what I've taken to having people do is write themselves a message on their cell phone with an alarm that will ring off at, say, 8:30 in the morning. Ting, there's a message, and they look at their cell phone and it says, you, Peter Thomas, are a wonderful human being. You're powerful, you're wise, you're sexy, women love you, you're in a condition of abundance. And that will appear to them every day. They don't have to read the whole thing every day, but you'll imagine eventually this person is going to transform their whole view of themselves. Now, there's one other important step. There's obviously a hole in the person's armor somewhere that they would let themselves be crushed, pipped, that the person would choose to make themselves smaller in response to something that's uncomfortable. And we liken it, this is Per Schutz's concept, but we liken it to a gap in their ethical code. We all have ethical codes of behavior, don't hurt people, don't steal, don't kill. I hope you've got a strong moral code of this kind that makes you behave like an acceptable human being and get along with others and be friendly. Well, there's a gap in that code, and the gap needs to be plugged, which is I will not allow myself to be pushed around, shrunken. I will not make myself smaller. Whatever I find is uncomfortable, I will deal with it or retreat from the toxic influence until I can find some proper remedy for the situation, at which point I will step back in and remedy that situation. So it's very important that the person also writes an addition to their personal ethical code, and that it works for them. You've got to be able to see that the person believes that. Oh my God, yes, I see this hole. I've now plugged it. This is never going to happen to me again. And by this time, of course, the person's in much better shape and you're just about ready to send them on their way. Or if you're their counselor, therapist, pastor, or whatever role that you're playing, maybe just friend, maybe spouse, maybe parents with children, that you can proceed to the next step of healing, knowing that they're not going to relapse, because their self-view is a strong, proud and positive one. So they're not going to let themselves get skittled sideways anytime soon. Well, there we are. Very simple, very powerful, very restorative, and indeed transformative. I really do recommend you learn these tools. You can do them for yourself. You know, there's nothing to stop you sitting down and thinking, well, what are all the times in my life when I made myself smaller? I needn't have done. But that was my choice. You write them down. And as I said, you need to pick apart the people. So if it was, oh, my first girlfriend, gosh, she was a bitch. Then you work on that person and pull off all the times that that person hurt you and you chose to make yourself smaller, and then go to the next person and so on. You can do this. And of course, you can write yourself up a new description of the new you and write yourself a new ethical code. You don't need a counselor or therapist for that, for goodness sake. So take it on yourself if you wish. But whichever way it goes, I wish you well with the freedom tools. They really are quite wonderful. Simple, powerful, but wonderful. Take care.